Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. This is my recap for the 2023 anime A Returner's Magic Should Be Special. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing. The story begins just after a battle has taken place and many casualties are scattered throughout the battlefield. A giant monster roams the land and is met by a group of warriors. Like most monsters, this one's able to speak without moving its lips and calls the humans before him foolish for thinking they could defeat him. We learn that shadow worlds represent the worst calamity humanity has ever faced, and they're steadily shrouding the world in black fog. There's no way of knowing what goes on inside that fog, but the one thing that is known is that no living creature can survive in the land that it taints. There is only one way to save the world, and that is by conquering the shadow worlds. One of the heroes bravely tells the dragon named Boromir that it's time to settle things once and for all. This guy is pretty confident considering there's a bunch of dead heroes around, as he tells Boromir that he will be the one to slay him and bring an end to this accursed hell. Boromir gets pretty upset, and that one guy that always points out the obvious yells out, "Here it comes." The it he is talking about is Boromir's fire breath, but my boy with the giant shield has it covered. Before the fireball can reach him though, it disappears as we see that our protagonist uses a spell to stop it, taking away Shield Guy's one opportunity to do something. Boromir prepares another attack that's even more powerful, but our protagonist digs deep and stops that one too. His name is Desir, and he loudly states that his magical pattern analysis is complete. He has sealed every draconian spell. The humans go on the offensive, but Boromir is insulted that the impudent humans think they can stand in his way. He uses his tail to attack this time, and Shield Guy finally gets his chance to shine as he blocks the attack. The warriors jump in to do some damage, and the mage hits him too. Seeing as how this is the battle to end all battles, the mage decides to use up every last bit of magic they have to power up their female warrior. Desir encourages her with his battle cry, and she lands the final massive blow. Boromir screams out in pain as he is in utter disbelief that things are ending this way. Everyone celebrates, and Captain Obvious speaks up again to say a single word: good. Desir is amazed by their great accomplishment and is glad that they can get out of this hell. Sometime later, the group celebrates, but one of them points out that they haven't received a message from the higher-ups, and wonder if they defeated the wrong target. Mr. State the Obvious says that Boromir was definitely the right target, but the others point out that they would usually be sent back to their world by now. Desir doesn't mind giving it some more time since everything is over now. Spirits are high, but the mage ruins it, as he points out that out of the 155 million people who fought him, only 6 of them survived. The mood shifts dramatically as Desir begins to think about how this world took far too much from him, comrades he fought alongside, and irreplaceable friends. The hippie of the group brightens things up by pointing out that they defeated Boromir and tries to change the subject. The mage explains that they can't look away from reality, and 99% of the mages died. He wants to think about what's to come, but the hippie tells them that they should pray first. Desir calms everyone down, so the religious hippie just compliments Shield Guy for his sweet blocking skills. He is too humble though and gives all the credit to Desir. The mage marvels at how Desir was able to analyze and seal Boromir's spells with his circle, since not even he has such power. The mage points out that even with all that power Desir has, he was completely unknown, and he asks him how that could be. Desir explains that it's because he is just a commoner. The mage thinks that's a complete shame, since if he had been at the magic tower, he would have made our boy a beast. They then go around talking about what they will do when they get back home. One guy wants to visit his dead friends' homes to return their keepsakes, because something about honorable deaths. The hipster is apparently the purest human being ever, as she just wants to return to the kingdom to take care of the victims' families and build a memorial. The mage wants to find a way to prevent a reoccurrence of shadow worlds, since if a similar one appears, it really will be the end of humanity. The warrior who actually ended the fight doesn't say a word, and rudely just ignores the question. The others wonder if Desir will be returning to Havrion Academy, and he thinks about a girl he once knew who would eventually die in battle. Desir states that he hasn't decided and just wants to get back home first. Just then they all sense something and realize that it isn't over yet. They don't understand the magic power they are feeling, and the mage is shocked as he is sure they killed Boromir. He quickly realizes something though. He explains that he once read that dragon hearts don't only pump blood, they also store and circulate vast amounts of mana. When the dragon dies, the blood stops and the stored mana with nowhere else to go explodes. Our shield hero steps forward, getting another chance to prove useful, and tells the mage that he wishes he would have mentioned that information sooner. Although he is clearly to blame for literally everything, the mage has an excuse as this is the first time in history that humans have defeated a dragon. The sky fills with light radiating from the mana-filled corpse, and Desir is shocked when his spell doesn't work. The mage points out that it's hopeless. They're up against a pure ball of magic power, and even under perfect conditions, they wouldn't be able to stop it. Everyone begins to prepare for their lives to end, and Desir wonders if this is really it. His life since the beginning of the episode flashes before his eyes, and Desir finds himself somewhere else completely. He is wearing normal clothes and can't figure out what's going on. He hears applause in the distance, and a woman welcomes all the new students to Havrion Academy. Desir remembers her as Professor Birgit, and she explains to the students that not everyone can be enrolled. Instead, they will all take a test, and only the top 600 will be accepted. Desir seems to know exactly what she's going to say, as she shockingly states that their test is to clear a shadow world. The students grumble in fear as that is far too dangerous, but Birgit tells them not to fear. The test shadow world is an artificial one created for the purpose of the test. As she speaks, Desir begins to realize something, but can't believe it. Birgit then states that they will now begin the entrance exam for the year 3613, confirming what Desir feared. He explains that the battle against Boromir started in 3616, and for the next 10 years they fought in that dungeon, and everything was destroyed. He collapses as he wonders what the point of it all was. Somehow, without pinching himself, Desir knows that it's not a dream, as he can clearly remember everything. Just then, a way too angry girl tells him that she was looking for him. She introduces herself as Ladoria and tells Desir that she will be his mentor. Desir searches his memory to find that Ladoria is a genius of a mage who wields fire magic, and she placed first in the academy rankings. She is shocked to learn that Desir is a commoner, and points out that even if he passes the test, he will be placed in the beta class. This school is apparently really big on discrimination. It puts nobles into the alpha class and commoners into the beta class. Even if you have talent, you can't receive a proper education if you're a commoner. They head inside, and Ladoria wonders why Desir isn't more amazed by the school. Desir tries to say he has seen a similar building before, but she points out that there is no facility like it. Just then, the two are met by Elheim the water mage, and Desir remembers that Ladoria doesn't get along with him. The two mages throw insults at each other for a while. Elheim mocking how short she is, and Ladoria pointing out how annoying he is. Ladoria reminds him that she beat him in a fight before, but he says that he just let her win. Elheim is impressed by Desir's manners for sitting quietly, but has a good laugh at Desir's expense when he finds out that he is a commoner. He says that he won't be competition for him, and tells them to look forward to the test. Before he leaves, he gives Desir a word of advice. He states that even if Desir gets lucky and passes the test, he will end up in the beta class, so he might be better off not taking it. Just then, students are called to begin the test, and we see that Ladoria is all fired up, and demands that Desir pass. As they head to the test, Desir becomes more and more sure that he is in the past. This being the case, he looks around and is relieved to see that someone isn't there. However, just then, a girl calls out to him and asks him to stop looking around so much since he looks dumb. Desir is in utter disbelief to see that it's Romantica, the girl he had memories of. Desir has no clue why this happened, but determines that the reason doesn't matter. He won't let a certain tragedy repeat itself, and he vows to rewrite the history of the world. Desir calls out to his long-lost friend, but this is well before they knew each other, so Romantica asks the weirdo how he knows her name. Desir explains that he simply saw her name on the screen, and they are in the same testing group. She wishes him luck as she leaves, but Desir can only think about how she has no idea how devastated he was to lose her. Our time-traveling hero composes himself though, and promises to never let her go through such a terrible ordeal ever again. The first test is a race in the beginner level of the Shadow World. The Shadow Worlds at the school are safe since they don't want to get sued by Karen parents, so even if students receive damage, they can evacuate immediately. Desir is surprised that they can still take damage, and Elheim arrives to explain that the use of magic and attacks toward participants is allowed. This dude continues his villain arc as he tells the pair that it will be impossible for Desir to pass the test. Elheim then introduces the person he is mentoring named Desest, a magic knight. Our time-traveling protagonist knows her well as she is a magic knight of ice, and a high circle mage who can wield vision magic, which is impossible to inverse. She is better with the sword than most pure knights, and she ends up being his most reliable teammate. Ladoria and Elheim argue a bit more, but this dude somehow always gets a last laugh, leaving Ladoria in fumes. She tells Desir that his odds against a magic knight are pretty bad, but urges him to not give up. Desir's group is called to begin testing, and they all enter the Shadow World. They will be aiming for the goal right in front of them, and only the top 3 will pass the test. They are allowed to use magic attacks, interference, and any other methods necessary to win. If a student receives fatal damage, they will be disqualified. Desir should probably be focusing on the test, but he's too distracted by his zest. She was there in the future when the world ended, so he wonders if she too has come back to this world with past memories. She surprisingly knows his name, but it's only because she checked before the test. Azez completely roasts our boy for having below average physical abilities and ruthlessly tells him that he has no future. She couldn't help but notice that he has an eye problem as he's been staring at her, but she assures him that he has nothing to worry about since she has no interest in attacking the weak. She is clearly not friendly, so Desir determines that she is not his loyal teammate from the future. The race begins and Azez takes off like she stole something, leaving everyone in her dust. Romantica follows after, but slows down to apologize to some little furball for bumping into it. Desir gets right to simping as he points out how she must still like stuff like that, but she has no clue what this guy means by still, and she wonders if he's making some terrible attempt to hit on her. She gets pretty annoyed by how he's acting like they are friends and tells him to focus on the race. The simp just can't help himself though, as he has missed interacting with her so much. She gets even more mad to hear these words, but is shocked when Desir saves her from a random fireball. Some dude is pretty upset that Desir's butting in on his attack on Romantica and uses his fire rod to attack. Romantica can defend herself though and takes this fool out. His name is Eggs and his disqualification is announced to everyone. Romantica thanks Desir for saving her, but instantly gets annoyed again by his dumb-looking face. The two of them are falling pretty far behind, so Romantica decides to show him her true abilities as she uses her arrow sweep spell. Elsewhere, some higher-ups tell Jesus with a ponytail that everything's going smoothly. They are particularly amazed to have a Magic Knight participating this year, and they marvel at how well she conducts herself. They all have a good laugh though when someone points out that a weak commoner is in the same group as the Great Magic Knight. They all pity the poor kid, but one chick seems to know something as she stares pretty hard at Desir. A guy following Azez is confident that all he will have to do is continue following her to pass, but is then shocked by Romantica's powerful wind. It's not strong enough to blow him away, but he can hardly move. Just then, he is shocked as Azez easily slices her way through the wind. This absolute idiot spends way too much time drooling over this girl and ends up getting a hug from Mother Nature courtesy of a giant tree. There was another guy next to him that got eliminated as well, so there are now only 3 participants left. Romantica smiles as this means they're all going to pass, but this chick is out for blood and tells Desir to just drop out. Desir wonders why, and her reason is simple: his disgustingly stupid face. She praises herself for warning Desir so that he doesn't get hurt and gives him one last chance to drop out. Romantica anticipates his surrender, but is shocked when he refuses. She can't believe he won't quit even after seeing her magic and gets furious when Desir simply smiles again. She has had enough of this annoying guy and she promises to hurt him so bad that he will think that he's going to die. She unleashes her powerful wind strike and says later to the dweeb. She is stunned though when Desir compliments her attack and sees that he is totally unharmed. Our boy is insane as not only did he survive, he's now pointing out how she prioritized speed in her attack, and that is why her control is so weak. Clearly not caring about how much he annoys her, Desir recommends a slight adjustment to her attack, and she completely blows up. Romantica prepares another attack that she guarantees won't miss, and unleashes her venom wind. Desir really gets to showing off now as he does that thing where he explains what he is doing while doing it. He simply changes the air currents a little and forces her attack to miss. She is shocked to see him use an inverse spell, since usually someone has to be at a much higher level, or a circle as they call it, to be able to use an inverse spell. This should be impossible for Desir to do since he is the lowest circle, so she decides to test him again. Desir simply just blows up her attack this time, and Romantica begins to lose her mind as she wonders if this means that his skills are higher than hers. The tables have completely turned now as our boy confidently says that they should finish up now. There are others he needs to defeat so he can't stay for long. He's getting too close for comfort, so Romantica tests to see if he can inverse a whole bunch of spells this time. Desir easily stops all of them and thinks about how Romantica is very powerful, but not powerful enough. This won't do since at this rate, they will simply repeat the same future where she met her demise. He is determined to make her stronger, so that is why he must be the one to win right now. Desir asserts his dominance like a boss and tells Romantica that inversing spells is not the only thing he can do. She is surprised to see him use a basic spell that erases friction and wonders why he would do that. Desir then shockingly reveals that she is actually not the one he has been fighting this entire time. The last thing he tells her is that they are not being tested on magic skills, they're being tested on who can reach the goal. Things start to become very clear as Desir explains that even if they receive fatal damage there, they won't die. Romantica begins to realize what this absolute genius of a man is planning to do, but points out that while he might not die, he will still take damage. Our boy ain't afraid of no damage and uses a fire spell to rocket himself at light speed. Romantica thinks he might be crazy, but it's really just a Riz King at work. Near the goal, Azez enjoys a comfortable lead, but can instantly tell Desir will soon pass her. She has no clue how he defeated Romantica, but decides that she will have to defeat him with all she's got. She prepares an immense attack, so our boy completes an analysis on every link spell she is using. This allows him to obtain control over the entire attack, but Azez realizes he is inversing them, and decides that she will have to end the fight before he takes them all. She instantly attacks with the ones that haven't been taken, but Desir manages to alter their trajectory. Azez sees that he just managed to dodge the fatal blow, and determines that she just won't give him time to inverse her spell. She combines her spells for her next attack, and Desir agrees that she is making the right decision. Unfortunately for her, our boy is a beast, and adjusts the attack's trajectory mid-flight. She is then shocked as he uses the blowback from the attack, combined with his lack of friction to launch himself again. Azez prepares an attack, but Desir explains that she's too hung up on defeating him, and he just blows right by her. Desir is announced the winner, but that practically means nothing to him. Our time traveler looks at his friends, and can only think about how they all, including himself, need to get stronger. It's the only way they can overcome the tragedy. Elsewhere, we see that a guy wearing a pretty dumb looking ring has just defeated a bunch of students, and is announced the winner of Group F. His name is Dante, and he stares at our boy's girl while giving her a creepy smile. Elsewhere, those in charge of the school discuss how, as expected, there will be no commoners in the Alpha class again this year. All these people discriminate pretty hard against commoners, as they say that the Alpha class is only for nurturing the chosen ones, and commoners should just be happy that they get to enroll in Havrion Academy. The top old man, who looks like he's never shaved in his entire life, silences them, and reveals that there has been a recommendation that a certain student be placed in Alpha class. It was Professor Bridget, and she confidently recommends Desir. Later, students check to see which class they have been placed in, and Desir sees that he is in Beta. However, what he is really concerned about is Romantica, as she is in complete shock. Moments later, we see that Romantica is pretty depressed by her rundown surroundings. The professor explains that skills of mages are ranked in circles. The lowest circle is 1 and the highest circle is 7. To be in the Alpha class, a student must be at least Circle 2. All the students in this class are as low as it gets at Circle 1, and their skills are not good enough for real shadow worlds. Romantica thinks that being in the Beta class is bad enough, but things are only made worse by her being in the same class as Desir, who irritates her to no end. She wonders why Desir is even there since he beat the Magic Knight, and is annoyed out of her mind when he just keeps on smiling. We then see that Bridget wasn't able to get the other professors to agree to have Desir put in the Alpha class. They are all nobles, so they strongly oppose the idea. Desir is furious not just for himself, but for all the talented commoners that are being ignored because of the discrimination. Desir decides that he must awaken as many talents as possible, no matter what it takes. Later, Romantica keeps doing her depressed thing, and that dude Dante approaches her. He is in the Alpha class and is planning to join Blue Moon, the best party in the academy, made up of the top students of the Alpha class. This rizzed up jerk came to invite our boy's girl to join as well, since she has excellent skills and perfect lineage. Romantica knows she must say yes since it will also get her into the Alpha class, but then this dude tells her that she will have to go out with him. She points out that this is their first time meeting, but this smooth talker tells her it was love at first sight. Romantica needs time to think, but this pushy dude gives her a gift that in his hometown is given to someone they are in love with. Romantica can hardly speak after that display of Riz, and is shocked when Desir appears behind her. Desir explains that he is there to make the same offer to her, but she declines to go out with him. Desir clears things up by pointing out that he actually meant he wanted her to join his party. It's pretty clear that she's going to pick the best party in the school over his, but Desir thinks about how that was the biggest mistake she ever made in the future. She tells our boy to beat it, so he leaves her a letter meant to be read when no one is around. Romantica mocks him for probably writing embarrassing stuff in it, but he tells her to get rid of it after she reads it, since it's for her own good. A quick read wipes the smug smile off her face, and she becomes furious, and Desir, who's long gone at this point, knew he would press her buttons. Desir then spots some blue-haired kid named Pram, and he is glad to have finally found him. Desir explains that among the warriors who participated in the battle before his time travel, Pram was one of the fastest swordsmen. He was the strongest in a timeline where he barely had any training, so Desir can't imagine how much stronger Pram can be if he gets some training this time. Just then, Romantica arrives upset that Desir seems to know some secret about her, but he tells her to quiet down to watch her practice. Romantica can't believe how adorable Pram is and wants to own him like a pet or something. Pram picks a weapon that shocks her pair since they wonder if he can really wield a great sword. Pram properly introduces himself, but his opponent refuses to speak to the Beta class scum. The practice fight begins and Mullet Man is instantly surprised by Pram's abilities. Romantica thinks Pram is pretty strong, but Desir knows that he is just swinging his sword around blindly. Mr. Business in the front, Party in the back fights back with a relentless attack, but Desir knows and anticipates a counter from Pram. Desir sees that Pram is going too soon as the redheaded mullet dodges and ends up countering him instead. The redhead named Percival is announced the winner, but he isn't satisfied with just that. He begins to wail on the poor kid while the useless referee just watches, so Desir jumps into action. He points out that the match is over, but Redhead threatens him too. Desir has a smart mouth on him as he asks Percival if he was upset that Pram's attack hurt him too much, or if he's just jealous of someone who's more talented than him. Desir manages to push every single one of this dude's buttons, causing him to attack out of control, but Desir blocks it with his arm. Desir once again reminds him that he won the fight, but frighteningly asks him what else he could want. Percival leaves but tells Desir that he will remember his face. Pram patches him up and Desir explains that he used magic to block the sword, so it didn't do much damage. Pram apologizes, but Desir explains that he was the one that chose to jump in. Pram points out that Desir now has an enemy in the Alpha class because of him, but again Desir says it's fine and he must tell Romantica to calm down because this girl's obsessing way too much about Pram's adorableness. Pram thanks Desir for rescuing him and promises to return the favor. Desir then takes Romantica somewhere they can talk in private, and he must calm her down by saying that he hasn't told a single soul about what he knows. However, he reveals that the professors know about it, which is why she was dropped to the beta class, even though she's a noble with amazing skills. Desir then puts it all out there as he knows that Romantica has the blood of a commoner, and her parents actually just bought the title of noble. The professors knew this and just think of her as another commoner piece of garbage. Romantica is certain that Dante will protect her if she joins their group, but he reminds her about how Dante called commoners filthy lowlives. Desir recommends that she join his party instead, and she becomes furious. She thinks he will tell everyone her secret if she doesn't join, and points out that he is a terrible person for blackmailing her. Our boy isn't a piece of garbage though, as he would never do that, and he simply says that if she doesn't join, then he will just have to start his party with Pram alone. Romantica's imagination runs wild with thoughts of the adorable kid, but she still struggles with her decision. She still thinks that Desir's pretty sketchy for smiling all the time and for knowing her secret. He acted super recklessly during the test and was somehow able to defeat the Magic Knight. On top of all that, he is somehow able to use the inverse spell even though he is at the lowest circle. After giving it some thought though, she decides to join his party, but mostly so she can uncover his secret. Romantica still hates his smile with every fiber of her being, but the two shake on their agreement. We then watch as Pram takes a good hard look at a strange looking sword. His mother handed him the sword that was left to him by his father, and explained that as long as the sword shined bright, it meant his father would be thinking of them forever and ever. The second this poor kid touched it though, it fell to pieces. Luckily for him, that part was just a dream. Later, the new trio head to see Bridget so they can apply to form a party. They enjoy some snacks, but it's soon time to get right to business. This chick grills Desir about why he wants to form a party, so he simply explains that he plans to get promoted to the Alpha class by winning the ranking tournament. Bridget points out how hard that is, but Desir is already well aware. She explains that the ranking tournament is an exam to determine the ranks of students in each grade. It's conducted with the Alpha and Beta classes together, and eligibility to participate requires a party of 3 to 6 members. The exam takes the form of a battle between two parties, and the winning party's ranks go up. This doesn't mean that parties with more members have an advantage though, since individual achievements are assessed. There are plenty of ways to earn rank, since the key is how much a student has contributed to the victory of their party. The objective of the ranking tournament is to assess the various skills of the students. The winning parties will participate in the final rounds that take place in a shadow world. Those who place within the top 9 are given the title of single rankers. Single rankers are able to advance from beta class to the alpha class, however not a single person has ever been promoted before. This is no surprise to Romantica since the alphas have such a huge advantage, and she is certain that it will be a one-sided tournament. Bridget explains that it's practically impossible, but Desir shocks everyone when he says that is why it's worth doing. The professors all think that betas aren't worth teaching because they have no talent, so if all 3 of them in their party can become single rankers, then it would prove the professors all wrong. Bridget hopes that they can overthrow the horribly prejudiced system at the school and asks Romantica and Pram if they are certain they want to join Desir's party. They do, so afterwards the 3 of them walk by an amazing top-of-the-line practice facility. Unfortunately, it's only for the alpha students, so they head to the beta students' practice facility. It's just a normal room, in fact it's worse than that since it's practically falling apart. Covered in dust with the floor creaking, but our always positive protagonist is sure it will grow on them. Unfortunately, they find that they have a ton of roommates, as hundreds of rats run back into their hole. Desir's plan is to clean the dump up, but Romantica is not a fan of the rats. Desir says he will take care of it, so Romantica admires him for going to find another room, but he reveals that his real solution is just to plug up the rat holes. They have no other choice, so they just clean the place up. They do an amazing job, but Romantica is distraught. Desir says that it's time to get going, so Romantica assumes that he means head home to get all washed up, but he actually means to start training. She instantly regrets joining his group, but remembers her goals. She heads for the door, but Desir points out that the training room is in the other direction. Training starts off with Desir training Romantica to improve the accuracy of her magic. She explains that she already has that in the bag, as she shows off by firing several wind attacks right at the target. She is pretty proud of herself, but Desir wants her to have all of the attacks hit the center. She thinks it's impossible, but he explains that it's the only way they can beat the alphas. He is confident she can do it, and thinks back to the future when she proved it in battle. Desir antagonizes her by saying she could keep cleaning if she wants to instead, so she gets motivated to wipe that smile off his smug face. To help with her training, Desir has her try to put a ball in a circle, and he has to tell this silly girl that she can't just throw it. She's supposed to manipulate the air current around the ball to move it. Wind magic is her specialty, so he just reminds her to visualize it. She does just that, and Desir's amazed that she got the hang of moving the ball in her first try. He encourages her to keep going, and she's just glad to have gotten a compliment. Pram is eager to learn about swordsmanship, but Desir reveals that there's nothing he can teach him. Shockingly, Desir says that Pram has perfected his craft as a swordmaster, and he should be strong enough to win the ranking tournament as he is now. Pram is sure that isn't true, especially just after Desir had to save him, but Desir knows Pram's true potential. Pram's amazing display of strength in the future is something Desir will never forget. He points out that Pram should be using a much lighter sword, specifically a rapier. Pram is clearly upset and hesitates to tell Desir why he doesn't use the more ideal sword for his style. Desir points out that it concerns the strength of their party, so Pram asks him to go with them somewhere. They leave Romantica, but she's doing just fine on her own. They arrive at Pram's room, where he reveals that he has no clue what his father looks like, since his father went to get the milk a long time ago. His mother was a commoner, and his father was a noble. The only thing his father left behind was a rapier sword. When Desir sees the sword, there's no doubt in his mind that it's the one Pram used back in the future. It's insanely light, and Pram explains that after learning that his father left it to him, he instantly started on the path of the sword. That way, when he eventually saw his father, he would be a respectable son fit to wield the sword. One day, his mother was on her deathbed and told Pram to never try to see his father since he lives in a completely different world than they do. She never even told Pram his father's name. In this world, having a child who is a commoner is a disgrace for a noble. If Pram had visited his father, he wouldn't have lived to be there now. So his mother was just protecting him. Pram explains that he still desperately wanted to find his father, so he joined Havrion Academy in the hopes of getting some clues. He explains that he had the Sword of Praise to help him find his father, but he becomes furious, and reveals that he was told that the sword has absolutely no value. It was not something worthy of a noble man. Pram breaks down as he thought his father loved him, and that's why he left the sword, but that clearly isn't the case. So Pram refuses to ever use that sword again. The next day, everyone is hard at work practicing. Romantica is easily dropping the ball in the circle, and is proud to have mastered it in just 3 days. Desir is quick to rain on her parade though, as he points out that the ball isn't staying in the circle. Desir strangely stares at her while thinking about the gift she got, and comes up with an idea. He asks Pram to show him the rapier sword, but Pram says that he doesn't care about that sword anymore, and so he can't show him. Desir pleads with him, but Pram shockingly says that the reason he can't show him is because he sold it. We then get a quick look at a shop where a couple of menacing looking guys are in possession of Pram's sword. Afterwards, Desir and Pram go to retrieve his sword, and Desir's amazed to see that everything is exactly like he remembers. They arrive at the sketchy looking alleyway that leads to the pawn shop and cautiously make their way there. A sign at the front of the shop explains that there are no refunds for any reason, and Desir wonders how these guys could be so obsessed over money. Pram tells Desir that he never wants to hold that sword ever again, but Desir asks him to just give him a chance. They finally get into the shop where they are met by a steroid-fueled giant, making Desir wonder why the place is so heavily guarded. Desir explains to the shop owner named Wooju Ken that they are there to buy the rapier that Pram sold. Wooju Ken points out that they have a no refunds policy, but Desir tells this dummy that is why he said he was going to buy it. The man reiterates that the rapier has no value as a sword, but surprises Pram when he reveals that he knew something was off because it was so light. Wooju Ken has an idea of what it might really be, and Desir shows his genius as he already knows. It's called a Kamuvin, and he saw something like it when that earring wearing dude gave his girl a gift. It's used by nobility to give a gift to the person they love, like a box. Unfortunately for this guy, he couldn't figure out how to open it. Wooju Ken then shockingly reveals that it would cost them 40 silver, but Pram is furious since he only sold it to the man for 3 silver just the day before. On top of that, he didn't even tell him that it was a Kamuvan. This sleazy guy points out that Pram only asked him to appraise it as a sword, so he did, and it was only worth 3 silver as a sword. However, now he is selling it as a Kamuvan, and its value is now 40 silver. Pram thinks this dude is just a dirty swindler, but Desir understands that it's just business, and pays the 40 silver. The guy wonders if he should have charged more, but Desir explains that is as high as he's willing to go. Wujuken tells him that just looking at it won't do any good, and an amateur like him won't be able to open it. This fool has no clue that he's talking to the protagonist, and we see that Desir uses his unique magic to read some hidden writing. Desir then urges the hesitant Pram to take the sword, and reveals that there is a groove on the hilt. Pressing this groove while removing the blade reveals that there is another blade underneath. Everyone in the room is shocked as this blade is neither iron nor silver. Pram has never seen a metal that shines like this, and Desir explains that the blade is made from blancium. It's harder than steel and lighter than a feather. It's metal that is used only in the highest quality weapons, and Desir is more certain than ever that this was the weapon Pram used in the future. They get ready to leave, but the giant behemoth gets in their way. Desir kindly asks the man to move the giant mountain of muscles, but Wujuken will only do so if they leave the sword. Desir reminds him that they had a business agreement, but Wujuken is a scummy shop owner and tells him that if the sword is really made from blancium, then that changes everything. Desir points out how much of a hypocrite the guy is, but this just makes the giant threaten them if they don't leave the sword. Desir simply refuses and easily dodges the musclehead's attack. Wujuken demands that he finish them off already, but the giant is shocked to see that Pram has stepped forward. Pram actually hates fighting, but it's clear that this guy intends to harm Desir, so he decides not to hold back. Pram is embarrassed after Desir reminds him that he said he wouldn't touch the sword ever again, but Desir was just messing with him and encourages him to show what he's capable of. Desir is certain that this sword is perfect for Pram's style, but is concerned since the giant's attacks can be fatal if they land. Pram is still pretty inexperienced at this point, so he is uncertain if he can win. However, everyone in the room is shocked when Pram begins to glow, and his opponent is excited by the determination in his eyes. He tries to attack, but Pram instantly counters and dodges, making it very clear that Pram is fast. Pram then demonstrates this even more, as the guy can hardly see him. Pram is landing a ton of hits, but they are just shallow cuts, and Desir wonders if he's having a hard time gauging his attacks with the rapier. The big guy is getting used to Pram's speed though, so if the fight drags on, then Pram will be at a severe disadvantage. Pram attempts to attack the guy's vitals, but the giant obviously expected that. Things are starting to look pretty bad, but Desir tells Pram to believe in his father. This is when Pram notices the writing on the sword and is inspired. He isn't sure how Desir could have known all this, but that doesn't matter. He is just determined to bring a victory to Desir for believing in him. Pram goes in for an attack, but Desir screams in shock as the giant saw it coming. Pram shows that he's not to be doubted though, as he slices right through the behemoth's sword and knocks him out. Pram credits the sword for being the only reason he is alive and says that it's all thanks to his father. They get ready to leave, but Wujuken explains that the door can only be opened by the guy that's unconscious on the floor. He demands that they leave the sword, but is shocked when Pram just slices his way out. On their way home, they stop to get something to eat, and Pram thanks Desir for everything he has done for him. Desir says it's not a problem, and it's only natural to help a friend when they are in trouble. Pram breaks down, and our silly protagonist wonders if he bought the wrong kind of food. Pram actually explains that he is crying because he was so lost and hopeless before. Now things are way better, and he even has someone that considers him a friend. He is just really happy and thanks both his parents as he plans to follow the words his father left. We then see that his father wrote the words "so my fledgling won't lose his way" on the sword. Back at the school, Romantica continues training really hard and displays her masterful control of the ball as she can now stop it right at the center of the circle. She celebrates but quickly realizes that she is alone. She tries out the challenge Desir originally gave her and is ecstatic when she manages to land every wind attack projectile right at the center of the target. Afterwards, she waits to meet with Dante and overhears people discriminating against her because she is in the beta class. Once she meets with him, she scarfs down a delicious meal, and Dante eagerly awaits to hear her decision about joining his party. Before she can even answer though, he assumes that she has accepted, and he prepares to take her to meet the other members of Blue Moon. Of course, he is incredibly shocked when she returns the gift he gave her, so much so that his tiny brain can't even understand what's happening. Romantica tells him that it's not just that she doesn't want to go out with him, it's also because she just joined the party in the beta class. This dude is in complete denial as he thinks she is just joking, but she is very serious. Romantica explains that she didn't like the party at first, but that completely changed. The leader is training her and improving her skills. She reminds him of how he called commoners trash earlier, and he doesn't retract his statement. In fact, he doubles down on it. Romantica reveals that she used to be a commoner, causing him to nearly have an aneurysm, and he once again thinks she is joking. She is again very serious, but she says that everything is okay now, since she has people in her life that won't look at her the way he just did. This guy is finally getting the message, and he tells her that if he had known that she was a commoner, then he never would have invited her. Their conversation is over, but Romantica has one last thing to say. She reveals that her party is planning to get promoted to the Alpha class, and that makes them enemies. This makes Dante furious, so he states that he will crush every single one of them. Romantica simply warns him to not look down on them and leaves. This enrages him more than you could ever imagine, as he looks like he's going to have a heart attack. We then get the reason why he is so angry, as a flashback shows a group of angry commoners destroying his home and demanding the execution of his father. Dante is so angry that he causes himself to bleed and vows to crush the filthy commoners. Sometime later, Desir's team enters the ranking tournament and they are in the qualifying round. Romantica wipes the floor with a group of 5 people using her wind attack, and their victory moves them up the leaderboard. Pram does his part against another team and they move up even more. Desir is the next to show what he can do, as our boy doesn't even move a single inch while stopping every attack of the enemy. The other 2 finish this team off, and our heroes reach the top 30, which means it's time for the real game to begin. Bridget is glad to see that they have made it so far, but is concerned because they will now have a huge target on their back. Elsewhere, the instructor in charge of the Blue Moon group is furious when he reads an article about Desir's team. The article points out that the team made up of beta class students has reached 30th place, and it questions if they will be the first ever to be promoted to Alpha. This guy angrily refuses to let them stay in their precious Alpha class, but he calms himself down. He explains to the Blue Moon students that while they are still only first years, it is their responsibility to uphold the pride and tradition of the Alpha class. For this reason, during the final round of the tournament, this psycho wants them to use any means necessary to eliminate Desir's team. He makes it very clear that they can never let them become single rankers. This guy speaks to Azez directly since she has fought Desir before, and she confirms that she is confident that she can beat him. She is the leader of the first year Blue Moon group, so he demands that she bring them victory. Azez can never forget the man that gave her her first taste of defeat, so she is determined to beat him with everything she has. Afterwards, Dante and Percival confront Azez. She thinks that they want to object to her being the leader, but they know how strong she is, and that is not what they want. Percival just wants to be the one that takes down Pram, and Dante wants to be the one that faces Romantica. Azez points out that they have a much better chance of winning fighting as a team, but these guys have serious personal grudges, so she allows it. She does, however, have one order for them. Azez shows that she has a personal grudge of her own, as she tells them that Desir is off limits to them because she will be the one to defeat him. Elsewhere, Desir thinks about how Romantica and Pram both have enough skills now, and he wonders if they are ready for the next step. His loyal teammates tell him that they are ready for more training for the final round, but Desir shocks them when he reveals that there is no training. Instead, they will be doing a special regimen for the final round. For this, they head to the library where Desir presents a bunch of books to them. Romantica is stunned when Desir reveals that he will be having them study history, and she must be reminded to stay quiet. The final round of the ranking tournament will take place in a shadow world prepared by the Academy. Historical incidents are recreated in those worlds, and if they're able to stop the incidents from happening, they clear the shadow world. Studying the history of these incidents will help prevent them, but they don't know which incidents will be produced. Desir tells them that he just used his intuition to pick some incidents at random for them to study, but we know that our boy is from the future. He knows exactly what the shadow world for the final round is going to be. During their studies, Romantica teases Pram for admiring their teacher so much, but they end up getting Desir's attention. This dude is a fierce dictator, as he demands that they get back to studying, all with a smile on his face. Moments later, the team is shocked as Azez approaches them. The moment is a bit tense, but Romantica breaks the silence by asking this chick what she wants. Azez points out that it's been 2 months since their fight, and Desir compliments her decision to join the Blue Moon. He thinks that she deserves to be in the strongest party in the Academy, but she questions if it's really the strongest since Desir isn't in it. Azez has approached him to formally declare war against Desir. Our time-traveling protagonist says that it's just like her to show courtesy for someone that she recognizes as her rival. Azez underestimated him that day, but she vows to defeat him with everything she has this time. Desir couldn't be happier to hear this, since he wants her to use that anger towards him to make her stronger. Our genius hero's entire goal that day was to ignite the fighting spirit inside her, and it has clearly worked. His friends becoming stronger is the only way they will be able to change the future, so he looks forward to fighting alongside the stronger Azest. Sometime later, we reach the day of the ranking tournament. Several portals have been set up at the center of a stadium, and reporters are busy interviewing instructors. The final round is a big event at the academy, so a lot of townspeople come to watch, and it gets pretty loud. It's clearly a big deal as Desir's friends realize that he's wearing his tie properly today. Desir explains that he doesn't wear his tie correctly normally because it's just uncomfortable, but Romantica thought it was just because Desir liked showing off his chest. They all joke around and Desir's just glad that they don't seem nervous at all. They're all ready to start and head to center stage. All the other teams are ready as well, and the large crowd erupts with cheers. One of the guys doesn't think that Desir looks very tough considering all the hype he has been getting, but some blue-haired girl tells him to focus. Some long-haired jerk chimes in though and reminds everyone that a guy like Desir isn't worth worrying about. A voice explains that the final round will begin shortly and reminds them that in order to clear the Shadow World, participants must solve a certain incident. They are all allowed to use any methods to win, but if they receive fatal damage, they will be disqualified. Everyone gives each other dirty looks, and it is explained that those who contribute to clearing the Shadow World will receive more points. The top 9 players will receive the title of single rankers. Desir and his team are at the very bottom, so Desir explains that in order for them to become single rankers, they have to either clear the Shadow World themselves or defeat every other participant. The gates begin to open and the final round of the ranking tournament begins. Everyone stares intensely at the portals, and once they finally open, the large crowds begin screaming for their favorite teams. With the portals open, everyone finally enters, but Desir's team is last. Desir reminds his friends not to worry and assures them that they can do anything they set their mind to. They are separated before teleporting inside, and a voice tells Desir that everyone's location has been determined randomly. Desir decides that his first objective will be to find his teammates, but he is instantly attacked by an ice bolt. The blue-haired chick from earlier can't believe how lucky she is to have found Desir right off the bat, and he just can't believe how famous he has gotten. This chick just wants to fight, but our boy easily melts her silly little ice attack. He gets pretty surprised though when she shows that she can use 2 spells at the same time, and she uses her Aqua Wave attack. Desir stops it with another fire attack, causing steam to go everywhere, and he realizes that her other spell is a defensive one. However, he can't understand why she's doing it. It becomes pretty clear though when she cleverly puts the second spell in front of the first to freeze it, and Desir points out that such interesting attacks are expected from someone in the Alpha class. The blue-haired chick is just getting started though, as she uses a wind spell to violently throw around all the shards of ice from her previous attacks. This lady is pretty full of herself, as she explains that her spells are a type of magic that a commoner like Desir would never be able to wield in his entire life. She asks Desir if he has any last words before she tears him to pieces, but our boy doesn't have a single ounce of fear in his body. He admires her confidence but then really irritates her when he points out that she should be aiming for his vitals. Desir continues getting under her skin as he states that she must not have that great of a control over her own spell. She angrily tells him to shut his mouth, so Desir knows that he's really in her head now. Desir is done messing with this girl, and with a simple snap from his fingers, he destroys her entire attack. Of course, she has no clue how he managed to do it, but realizes that he's using inversing spells. Desir has full control over the fight now and teaches her a lesson. He says that she should never underestimate her opponent and she should always think about her next step. Those are the basics of war, so he tells her to watch closely and ingrain it in her brain. Desir finishes up collecting all her shards to create a massive crystal and sends it right back at her. This chick is pretty dumb apparently, as she simply says that there's no way that a commoner's magic can beat her. She thinks that she can easily stop his attack, but our boy isn't done teaching her a lesson. He breaks apart the giant crystal to avoid her shield and easily defeats her. An announcement of her defeat is made, and Desir points out that it's just one of many to come. Elsewhere in the Shadow World, some little nerd walks around complaining about how hot it is in his random location. He wishes he had some sun protection, but takes a moment to appreciate the breeze. This poor kid is quickly dropped by a powerful spell from Romantica, and his disqualification is announced to everyone. 27 participants remain, and we see that Romantica and Pram have already found each other. They were lucky to be transported near each other, and Romantica thinks it's adorable when Pram is worried about Desir. She uses her wind magic to detect some nearby enemies and decides to go after the one that is all alone. Romantica sends out an attack, but it's instantly destroyed and 2 enemies appear. One explains that detection magic has the downside of revealing your location to opponents, and her boyfriend reminds her that Romantica is just beta trash. Romantica doesn't take the insult lightly and decides that they should find out who the real trash is with a fight. The guy wants to keep talking trash about how much better their class is, but Pram instantly attacks him. This jerk just uses it as proof that they are lacking in manners, and Romantica realizes that they aren't that weak. Everyone gets on guard and the fight is led off with swords. The one girl tries using some magic, but Pram decides to show off his immense speed. The girl becomes terrified and begins to wonder if Pram is really in the beta class. The guy knocks up a bunch of dirt and tells his girl to blast him away with some powerful area magic. She begins the magic, but this only reveals her exact location to Romantica, and Romantica sends her flying with a wind attack. Romantica is the one making the insults now, as she calls them dumb for hiding themselves only to reveal themselves with an attack right after. The guy gets real upset, but Pram reminds him that he needs to focus on the fight. Pram is actually distracting him, and Romantica finishes off the alpha boy. Romantica thinks that he would have had a chance if he focused on defeating her first, and points out that it's what he gets for underestimating the beta class. 25 participants remain, and our duo hopes that all of them are as dumb as these two were. The two compliment each other on how much they have improved, and Pram credits Desir for all their training. Speaking of Desir, Romantica tells him to come out from hiding, since she knows that he has been watching them. Desir was amazed by their progress, and states that he knew they could handle the situation on their own. Romantica realizes that Desir was the person she attacked earlier. She thought she had become strong, but Desir destroyed her spell so easily. Desir compliments her on how well she did, and gives her head a good pet as a reward. She was being so quiet that he thought that's what she wanted, but she gets really upset by it because she isn't a dog. The fun and games end as Desir notices a storm coming. Red lightning scorches the sky, and something happens at a nearby clock tower. In the distance, a large fire attack erupts, and we find that some poor guy got obliterated by another team. 18 participants remain, and Desir explains that there are two paths for them to get promoted to the Alpha class. First is by finishing in first place by clearing the Shadow World. The other way is to simply survive and place within the top 9. Desir is certain that it would be impossible for them to clear the Shadow World since the other teams would simply gang up on them. There is a small chance that they can finish in the top 9 though. The other teams will be clashing against each other, and they just need 9 more to get disqualified. Romantica thinks it will be much more difficult than he is making it sound, but Pram is confident they can do it. However, instead of drawing up a plan or doing something useful, Pram is simply doodling on the ground. Just then, they run for cover as it begins pouring rain, and there are no signs of it stopping. They have no choice but to wait it out under a tree, and Romantica comes to a realization. Aiming to be in the top 9 among the Alpha students would never even have crossed her mind if it wasn't for Desir. If it wasn't for him, then she would have joined Dante's team, and who knows what would have happened when they found out that she is a commoner. Desir can tell that she is uneasy, and tells the both of them not to worry since he can tell they are getting way stronger. Our boy's Riz is really getting to her, but she calls him a weirdo and tells him to stop touching her head. She reminds him how much she hates his dumb face, but thinks about how she really loves her team. Just then, a bell rings in the distance, and everyone can hear it. Desir says it's finally time, and reminds Romantica that this was part of their studies. They are in the world of the previous clock tower. The previous clock tower is a high-level magical device that produces monsters at regular intervals. Just then, the clock tower activates, and we see that something is in the ground. A voice announces that a survival quest has been generated, and the clock tower has produced a new monster. All the teams need to survive the monster's attack, and all the teachers think it's bad news for the beta class. They are all certain that Desir's team is finished, and the big dude in charge of the Blue Moon group laughs at Bridget. Back with our team, they hear a girl scream for her life, and it's announced that there are only 17 participants left. Danger is approaching, so Desir tells his 2 friends to stay back. Something begins to stink real bad, and the ground begins to shake. A monster is coming, so Desir tells them to be on guard, and a rat emerges from the ground. The other 2 are terrified as the rat lets out a loud roar, and Desir realizes that they need to get out of there. A giant horde of rats appear, and Desir determines that this is because of a Kildra monster. It's a monster that uses a battalion of mice-like limbs. Its diet is human blood, and it never gives up once it has chosen its target. Romantica decides to fire an airball at them, but it's no use. They just need to keep running, but it's pretty clear that the mice are catching up. Desir explains that their only option is to beat the one in command. It'll be one of the mice in the pack, but Romantica thinks it would be like finding a needle in a haystack. Desir stops running as he knows a way to find the leader. He makes himself bleed and uses his blood to draw out the one in command. The dumb little rat reveals itself, and Romantica drops the thing right out of the air. The thing doesn't die though, and Desir points out that even though it's a little rat, it's still a monster. Its magical resistance is high, and even Romantica with their current skills can't beat it in one blow. The rats just keep coming, so Desir determines that he has no choice. He commands his team to retreat, but is shocked when Pram jumps forward. The team tells Pram to stop, but this crazy kid runs straight into the giant swarm of rats. Elsewhere, the other teams are having just as much trouble with the rats, as there are now only 16 participants left. The red team is faced with a giant group of rats as well, but their leader confidently tells his group to stand back, and he uses a fire spell. The green team apparently has no clue what is going on, as they are glad to see that what they feared was just a tiny little mouse. One dummy tries to shoo it away, but the mouse lets out a battle cry, and they are swarmed. We then return to find that Pram is inside the horde of monster mice. He tells himself to focus and tries to find the one in command. He is certain that it took damage from Romantica's spell and is determined to find the little critter. After fighting the mice for a moment, he finally detects something. On the outside, Desir desperately tries to rescue Pram by tearing away at the mountain of vermin. Romantica wonders if she should attack with their air balls, but Desir points out that she will end up hitting Pram too. Desir panics as he begins to feel like he's going to lose Pram again, the same way he did in the future. However, just then, Pram emerges from the pile with a huge attack, and he eliminates the Kildra mouse. It is announced that their survival quest is over, but Desir rushes to Pram as he is in bad shape. Pram receives praise from his friends, but he is exhausted. Desir tells him to get some rest, so the kid takes a nap. Desir puts Pram safely under a tree as he is amazed since Pram is terrified of rats. Desir tells Romantica to watch over him, but says nothing else as he walks away. Desir is furious with himself since he should have been able to clear the quest without making Pram go through all that. He realizes that he got carried away with their improvement and he let his guard down. Desir punches his own face and reminds himself that he is there so he won't lose his friends again. He returns to his friends who are worried about his face, but he says it was nothing. Desir's team is surprised that he wants to travel in the rain, but he explains that it's because they have found the previous clock tower. They head there, but Desir reminds himself of one more thing. He plans to take the perfect route to reach his goal, and vows to never make the same mistake again. Elsewhere, we see that the red team is amazed by how their leader burned an entire area to defeat their rat group. The green team won their battle as well, and Azez used her ice magic to defeat their rats. Desir's group finally reaches the clock tower, and we see the leaders of all the remaining teams. Azez's team stares at the eerie clock tower, and it is explained that whoever stops it wins. They are confident that it will be a piece of cake, but the wind begins to pick up. Azez quickly realizes that it's not just any wind, and they must quickly defend themselves from a barrage of magic attacks. The attack is relentless and even manages to destroy 2 guys from Azez's team. It's definitely another team doing it, and Azez points out that the detection and attack were almost simultaneous. Azez determines that it could only be one person, and we see Romantica up in the tower. It is announced that 2 more participants have been eliminated, and Desir thinks about how that means only 15 people are left. Azez and her 2 goons make their way up to the tower, but they must defend themselves from waves of air attacks. Romantica is really on her A game, but she apologizes to Desir since their opponents are blocking all her attacks. Their cover is blown, but Desir isn't worried since they can just focus on another team. Romantica thinks Desir is insane for the suggestion since that will cause all the teams to gather there. Romantica demands a response from him when all he does is smile, so Desir reveals that gathering all the teams there is part of his plan. He asks her to just trust him, so Romantica opens fire on the green team. The 2 guys had no clue what was coming and their elimination is announced. 13 participants remain, so Desir prepares something by using his ability on a wall. Azez has Dante open the door to the tower, but they are shocked to see that the red and green team have already confronted each other. The red team's leader is named Gabriel, and he wonders if Azez's team was the one that attacked them outside. The green team was attacked as well, so they both accuse Azez of the despicable act. Azez demands proof of the accusation, so Gabriel points out that there is no one who can use so many spells of that level at once except for them. Azez determines that they wouldn't believe her if she told them that it was a beta student doing it, and realizes that this must be Desir's plan. Desir's plan works perfectly as Gabriel's ready to get revenge, but Azez tells her 2 goons to stay back. Azez confidently states that she will take care of all of them, but this just annoys Gabriel. He unleashes a ferocious fire attack, and one of his fanboys explains that their leader is the strongest flame mage. The fanboy gets absolutely destroyed by a Zest, and she also freezes another one of them. The green team decides to team up with the red team since it will be the only way they can become single rankers, but Zest is able to hold them off easily. The battle can be heard throughout the whole tower, but it is soon over. Desir surprisingly reveals that his plan didn't actually work though, and points out that there hasn't been any announcements. This means no one has been eliminated, and tension builds as our heroes can hear someone coming up the stairs. It's a Zest team, and she explains that she only locked the others in place. Desir was hoping that they would all crush each other, but Zest has ruined his plan. She thinks his plan was dumb, and everyone pairs off against their counterparts. Zest exclaims that if they really think they deserve to be single rankers, then they need to fight and prove it. Just then, Zest uses her ice to isolate them on the next floor, and the fight begins. Dante goes right for Romantica, and Percival reminds Pram that he is his opponent. On the next floor, Desir seems to be in bad shape, but Zest tells him to get up as she is sure that attack wasn't enough to end him. She is correct as our boy was just faking, and he uses a spell called Stone Break. The stone that hits her turns into a dangerous snake, but Zest manages to freeze it just before it attacks. Our boy follows that up with some of his inversing magic that destroys her ice and covers the area in dust. Desir isn't taking the offensive and just hopes that something will make it in time. Down below, Percival has taken control of the fight against Pram, and he wonders why Pram switched swords. Pram mocks the mullet-having redhead for doing too much talking, so Percival attacks with rage. He is certain that he is going to destroy the little kid, but is instantly surprised when he can't even hit Pram. Percival quickly realizes that his skills won't be enough since Pram is a completely different fighter this time around. Pram kicks this dude right in the chest, and Percival can only wonder how he got so strong in such a short time. Pram refuses to tell him his secrets to success, so Percival gets enraged and calls Pram beta trash. Things are going much easier for Dante as he easily fends off Romantica's attacks. The confident Dante wonders if that's all she's got, and Romantica thinks about how she doesn't have much mana left. She is at a severe disadvantage in close range combat, and Dante's ready to end the fight. Luckily for her, Desir's magic destroys an ice pillar, and Dante loses visibility. He doesn't think it's much of a problem since everyone has lost vision as well, but Romantica somehow nearly hits him. Her attacks continue, and he wonders how she could possibly know his location. Dante realizes that she is using wind to detect him, and Romantica decides that she will have to end the fight while there is still fog. Unfortunately, Dante hits an item that clears the fog, so he retakes control of the fight. He nearly slices her to pieces, and Romantica realizes that the item around his neck is the gift she returned to him after she rejected him. Dante explains that his little necklace is too good for a commoner, but Romantica tries to explain that they are all students regardless of status. They are all humans, and that fact will never change. She is tired of all the segregation, but Dante is disgusted by the thought of a noble like him being compared to a commoner. Romantica is getting pretty sassy and demands that he tell her what the difference between them is. For Dante, the difference is everything: class, strength, and talent. They were different from the moment they were born. Dante has memories of what the commoners did to his father, and he refuses to believe that they are the same. Romantica has no clue about his past and just thinks that he is a crazy lunatic. Dante knows that she wouldn't understand even if he told her, so he plans to make her learn the hard way. Dante surrounds the area on fire, causing Romantica to counter with air. However, Dante is too skilled and knocks her back. Pram rushes to her side, and she reveals that she just barely managed to survive. Dante tells Percival to stand back as he is finally ready to slaughter all the commoners. Dante's crazy is really showing now, but Romantica needs time to restore her mana. Pram prepares to buy her some time, but he is quickly swallowed up by Dante's attack. Dante heads directly for Romantica, but Pram frees himself to rescue her. Of course, this only gets Dante more upset with the filthy commoners. Percival reminds Dante that Pram is his prey, but Dante has lost his mind and proclaims that he will be the one to end them both. Pram explains that Dante tunnel visioned super hard when trying to eliminate Romantica, so he was able to take advantage of that. Romantica realizes that in her current state, she won't be able to defeat Dante, and she will only slow Pram down. She comes up with an idea though, and asks Pram to lure this spiky-haired redhead somewhere else. Dante is after her, so she wants to fight him herself, and she knows that Pram wants to fight Percival one-on-one. Romantica tells him not to worry, but Pram can tell that she is lying. He knows that Romantica is trying to sacrifice herself, so he refuses. Pram proclaims that all three of them on their team will become single rankers, and none of them will be left behind. He remembers the words of their fearless leader and reminds her that they are much stronger now. Romantica wants him to stop smiling because it reminds her of Desir's stupid face, but Pram just can't help it. Romantica thanks the kid for inspiring her, and the two prepare for battle. Up above, Azez tells Desir that this fight won't end the same way the entrance ceremony did. Our boy is ready to fight too, and agrees that they should fight to their heart's content. Azez shows off her insanely powerful magic, but Desir easily destroys it. Azez then uses magic to make her more mobile, but she is shocked when Desir shows that he can inverse that as well. She tries to end him with her next attack, but with just a single snap from Desir's fingers, her spell is destroyed. Desir doesn't give her any chance to react as he follows up with fire magic, but he is amazed when she was able to avoid it by encasing herself in ice. Desir compliments her for not even having a scratch on her, and she realizes just how dangerous Desir is. Azez expresses her extreme confusion since she surpasses Desir in all aspects of combat. Mana, magic speed, hand-to-hand combat, she is better than him at all of them, but for some reason she is struggling against him. Our boy Desir gives her his signature smile and simply tells her that she needs to have some more fun. Azez is as serious as it gets though, and determines that she's only lacking in experience. Azez attacks, but Desir saw it coming a mile away, so he counters. Azez is no slouch however, as she dodges all of his fireballs. She moves in for a sword strike, but Desir uses a spell to increase his strength and stops her. Azez does manage to push him back, causing Desir to be impressed with her power. Azez continues her barrage of attacks, putting Desir on his heels, but she still can't understand why she can't beat him. She couldn't be more serious, but Desir wonders if she is having fun, and he points out how she probably has never had a battle against a worthy opponent. Desir looks back to the future as he remembers how Azez always looked bored because she was never challenged in battle. Azez doesn't know anything about this fun thing he is talking about and just proclaims that she will beat him. Desir instructs her to give him everything she's got, but she's already way ahead of him. Things begin to intensify greatly as Azez prepares an attack she calls the Frozen Throne. The entire room is covered in ice, and Desir recognizes it as vision magic, a type of magic that he cannot inverse. Azez takes a seat at her throne and tells Desir to get ready. Almost instantly, Desir is dodging shards of ice, and he is stunned when he sees the insane number of magic circles that Azez has created. She uses them to attack, but Desir is not afraid. He explains that inside the frozen palace of vision magic, Azez can wield her magic without limitation. It was the trump card that she used before Desir went back in time. It's an incredibly advanced ability, so he is shocked that she can use it already. Our boy doesn't have a single fearful bone in his body as he's able to inverse these attacks. Azez continues to make more circles, but Desir just destroys those as well. Desir confidently states that it doesn't matter how many she makes, her magic will never reach him. Azez realizes that he is inversing every spell instantly and wonders if she can win with her sword. She determines that her sword alone and her magic alone won't win her this fight, but she comes up with an idea. Azez surprisingly decides to remove her vision magic, but Desir is both shocked and amazed when he realizes why she did it. Down below, Pram defends himself against Dante and manages to send him flying. Romantica thinks that they need to defeat Dante before the spiky redhead joins the fight, but it's too late as Dante tells Percival to give him a hand. Percival mocks him since Dante said he would handle them on his own, but Dante explains that he just doesn't want to waste any more of his precious life fighting disgusting commoners. The two villains attack our heroes and end up putting them in a very tough spot as their teamwork is impeccable. Pram does well to fend off Percival's first attack, but Dante is quickly approaching, and Percival has already recovered his sword. Things are looking pretty bad for our heroes, but Romantica thinks about Desir and regains her confidence. She tells Pram to get down and unleashes an insanely powerful attack. Back upstairs, Azez transforms her weapon into a magic sword, the ultimate attack method that can only be used by magic knights. Usually it takes 10 years to master this skill, but Azez somehow did it in the blink of an eye. Azez begins her attack, so Desir tries to push her back using a spell, but she is undeterred. Azez is pretty pleased with herself as she found a way to attack that Desir cannot inverse, so she goes in for the final blow. Desir's dagger is destroyed and Azez celebrates her victory. Unfortunately, her celebration is premature as she realizes that Desir is using his inversing spell. She has no clue what he could possibly be inversing, but she is stunned when she sees that his spell is being casted throughout the entire tower. Just then, it is announced that the quest has been cleared. The magical power of the previous clock tower has been severed, and it has stopped functioning. This marks the end of the ranking tournament's final round. The clock tower will never again summon demons, and Desir is announced to everyone as the person who cleared the quest. The crowd watching erupts with cheers, and instructors have mixed feelings about the outcome. Bridget is of course happy, but the big dude in charge of the Blue Moon group refuses to acknowledge the commoners as the winners. He even goes so far as to accuse Bridget of cheating somehow. This guy is really set on discriminating and points out that it's impossible for a commoner to outdo a magic knight and clear a shadow world. Some other classist bigots join in to accuse her of leaking information to Desir's team. Luckily, there are some other teachers with common sense, and they point out that there's no evidence against her, and they all saw who won the fight fair and square. Jesus with the ponytail remains calm and has his assistant reveal that he had already chosen the single rankers before the meeting even started. This ruthless old man states that the purpose of the meeting was simply to hear their opinions, even if their opinions are garbage that isn't worth listening to. This Jesus looking dude that looks like he plays hacky sack on his free time then has the assistant read the names of the 9 single rankers, but we don't get to hear. Elsewhere, Desir reveals that his plan originally was for his team to last long enough for the other contestants to eliminate each other. Ending in the top 9 would have been enough to make them single rankers, but Azez figured that out and froze everyone instead of eliminating them. Unfortunately for her, her team was so focused on fighting them that they didn't realize what their real plan was. Desir's team arrived at the tower slightly before everyone else, and he started analyzing the tower. It's an ancient tower, so it was very difficult, and he ran out of time. He just barely managed to finish analyzing it during his one-on-one against Azez, and he wouldn't have been able to do it if all the alphas came after him. Azez realizes just how much of a genius our boy is since he wasn't even focused on their one-on-one battle. He was always looking at the bigger picture just like he was during the entrance exam. Azez realizes that she has always been playing right into his hands and acknowledges that he has defeated her in every possible way. Desir is of course humble as always and states that if her sword had come just a tiny bit faster, she might have won. Pram arrives to interject and points out that if Azez would have done that, then they would have fought in his place. They had already beat up her goons by that point and are ready to take her down if they must. Desir praises his team for a job well done, but Romantica tries her best to pretend like she doesn't like getting her head pet. They are clearly a very close team, and Azez depressingly leaves to go see Professor Fergman, the instructor in charge of the Blue Moon group. Before she leaves, Azez puts her pride aside and asks Desir if she can join his training group. Romantica tells Desir not to let her, but he tells Azez to meet them at the training area in the mornings and after school. Romantica is furious, but Azez agrees. Afterwards, Desir's team goes to see Bridget. Before she reveals if they are now single rankers, she brings out a huge cake. It's from a bakery where people line up for half the day just to eat the crumbs off the floor left by people walking out with bread. This place is so popular that cakes are reserved for the next 3 years. Romantica assumes that this means good news, but Bridget reveals that they didn't pass. Luckily, this lady has a sense of humor as she was just joking, and she congratulates the 3 of them on officially becoming single rankers. They are all the first commoners to ever be promoted to the Alpha class, so they all celebrate. Desir thanks her for her help, but Bridget points out that they were the ones that did all the work. As they all shove tons of cake into their face holes, Bridget has a memory from a long time ago. Desir was just a weak little nerd, so he asked Bridget to teach him magic. She then helped the dweeb over the course of several years, and Desir became the boss mage he is today. They all continue scarfing down unhealthy amounts of the sugary dessert, and Bridget thinks about how strong Desir has gotten. Sometime later, Desir's friends are ready to have some fun as they're on a break from school. When they go back, they will be in the Alpha class, so this is their last chance to enjoy themselves before they get really busy. Desir is the most responsible one in the group, so he is hesitant, but his friends eventually convince him to hang out in the mall. The so-called fun starts off with the guys just waiting around while Romantica tries on different outfits. Desir thinks she looks okay and whatever, but Romantica gets upset as she wanted to hear something more exciting. She decides to give him another shot at it and goes to try on something else. Desir begins to say things like "you look so amazing" and "that really looks great on you." That's the exact kind of thing Romantica wanted to hear, but she gets really upset when she realizes that Desir was talking about Pram. The little brat stole the show, leaving Romantica pouting. It's Desir's turn to get something now, so Pram silences Romantica as he needs full focus on helping Desir pick a tie. Pram just can't decide, so Desir signals to Romantica in the hopes that she will get him out of this situation. Romantica signals back that there's no stopping Pram when he gets this way, so Desir has no choice but to wait, even though he can't stop shaking from having to bend down. This horrible event finally ends, and Romantica can't believe that Pram took more time shopping than she did. They decide that it's okay since Pram is so happy, and head to the next area. Azest appears out of nowhere and explains that she likes a change of pace every now and then. Things are a bit awkward, so Desir invites her to tag along with his group. Azest somehow mistakes his invite and agrees on a rematch for the ranking tournament. Desir doesn't want to fight, but Azest reveals that it was just a hilarious joke. Desir thinks about how it's impossible to tell since Azest seems like she has never told a joke in her life. The two then join the others, who are already starting the fun in an arcade. Pram focuses super hard on the claw machine, and it works as he gets a prize. Romantica celebrates with him, but they are stunned when Desir brings Azest with him. Azest strangely swaps places with Pram, so the Pram could be next to his favorite person, Desir. This solves nearly everything, as the little weirdo is now happy, but Romantica can't believe she was betrayed. Desir suggests they play some air hockey, but Pram gets upset once more when he ends up on the opposite team. Romantica has been angry this entire time and sends a dirty look right at Azest. The game begins and things get really serious. Desir reminds Romantica that they are playing against the Academy's top-class swordsman and magic knight. He warns her not to let her guard down, but the defiant Romantica says she already knows. She doesn't realize how serious things are, however, as Pram proclaims that he's going to finish the game in a flash. He can't stand being on the opposite team and wants to pair up with Desir in the next match. Pram starts the game off, and Desir must use his quick reaction time to send the puck back. Azest doesn't let it get past her, but it's Romantica's turn now. She sends it flying and it goes right by the two defenders. They can't believe it, but are even more shocked when they see that Romantica has powered up. She reveals how big of a mistake it was for them to challenge her at air hockey because she specializes in wind magic. She plans to teach him a thing or two, but Desir points out how unfair it is to use magic. Azest doesn't mind at all, but Desir panics as that surely means trouble. He is proven right as Azest sends the puck back, but uses her ice magic to change its trajectory. They score a point and Desir remembers how much Azest hates losing. This just gets Romantica even more fired up, so the intense match continues. Desir gets distracted for a moment while thinking about the future, but Romantica snaps him back to reality as the puck is coming at him at top speed. Desir instantly inverses Azest's spell, destroying her ice. He launches the puck at them and scores, impressing everyone. Azest is just glad that he is finally ready to take the game seriously, and Desir states that the real game starts now. Afterwards, Azest thanks them for giving her the nice change of pace that she was looking for, and she leaves. Romantica hopes she never has to see Azest ever again, but the guys give her some bad news. They remind her that Azest will be training with them, and they will also all be in the Alpha class. After school break, Romantica and Pram get their first look at the Alpha class classroom. Pram makes things weird again and shows that he has Desir as his wallpaper on his new tablet. Romantica gets excited for the new school year, and Desir arrives to take them to morning practice. At practice, they welcome the newcomer Azest and begin with some stretching. They move on to sword fighting, but Romantica is displeased when Azest holds her own against Pram. Azest fails to put a ball in a circle, so Romantica steps forward to show her how a pro does it. Romantica is pretty pleased with herself, but Desir reveals that he has more balls for her. Romantica has practiced a ton though, and easily puts all the balls in the circle. Desir reveals that he has even more balls, but Romantica has had enough. Eventually practice is over, and Azest compliments Desir on his training style. She points out that he identifies each person's strengths and adjusts accordingly. Morning practice is now over, and they will meet again after school. Romantica is exhausted from playing with Desir's balls, so she asks him if he can go easier on them during morning practices. Unfortunately, they can't take it easy as they're running out of time, and the next battle will be a real fight. If anything goes wrong, they could lose their lives. It will be tough, but he needs the two of them to get stronger. Desir's team believes that he will get them there, and they all get excited for the future. In class, a teacher explains that the battle between humanity and the Shadow World still continues. The disaster that repeats every year continues to harm their world. Because of this erosion, their continent is now only half of what it used to be. On the bright side, their success rate of clearing Shadow Worlds is a startling 99.9%. They have been able to halt the contamination from the Shadow Worlds thanks to the power of magic gems. Magic gems appear when a Shadow World is cleared, and they contain an incredible amount of mana. However, they cannot be used as they are found. A process was invented several years ago that allows them to use the power. As a result, the mana that was produced gave rise to a lot of technology. The instructor asks the students who invented this process and calls on Romantica, who is falling asleep, to answer the question. Luckily for her, our boy Desir gives her the answer, and she's able to save herself from embarrassment. Class ends, but Desir goes to introduce his team to Professor Prelude. She is amazed by the single rankers, even the sleepyhead Romantica. Prelude is surprised to hear that Desir needs a favor, so they head to her office. Prelude assumes that he needs support for his party. Each party is eligible to receive support from the Academy and the Magical Tower, but unfortunately the deadline has passed. That isn't it at all, and Desir hands her a request form. Desir wants her to assign his party to guard a certain branch of the Magical Tower. Prelude is a bit surprised that they want to protect the tower, but she declines simply because she has no reason to allow it. She apologizes but does want to know why he brought it up. Desir then reveals that he knows that a magical stone called the Tear of a Journal is stored at the Horelli branch. Prelude is shocked and demands that he tell her how he knows that. Desir then shocks her even more when he states that in 10 hours, a certain group is going to try to steal it. Prelude's disbelief continues, and Desir reveals that this group is called the Outers. Prelude's shock nearly gives her a heart attack as she can't believe how much Desir knows. The Tear of a Journal and the existence of the Outers who are after the magic gems. This stuff is top secret information. Desir was in the beta class just a few days ago, so she can't understand how he could know about it all. Desir doesn't have time to explain and states that they need to do something before the magic gems are stolen. Desir once again requests that she allow them to protect the branch, as she is the only one that can do this for them. 10 hours later, at the Magical Tower headquarters, we see an old face from the future, the know-it-all mage named Master Zod. He is informed by a panicking guy that the Horelli branch is under attack. Master Zod goes to check who will be protecting the branch and sees that it's a student he has never met before. Somewhere outside the tower, some guy is running with a bunch of bread in his hands. He bumps into some big guy and falls, but the stranger is able to levitate the food. The kid apologizes to this really serious buff dude, but the guy says it's okay and just wonders if the kid is hurt. The kid is fine, so the creepy guy helps the weak little kid up. He wants to know why the kid is in such a hurry, so the kid reveals that he has a little brother waiting for him at home. His brother is starving, so the big guy recommends that he hurry home. Before he lets him leave though, the big guy says that the kid should be more careful since things get very dangerous at night. The situation then completely changes as the big guy surprisingly drops the bread on the ground and crushes it. This is the exact kind of trouble he was talking about, so the guy says to be more careful next time. As the guy leaves, someone appears next to him, wondering if they should end the kid's life. The guy decides to let him live, and we see that he is heading towards the Tower of Magic. After he leaves, we see that this weak kid is actually Desir. The big guy arrives at the Tower of Magic's entrance, where he puts on his mask. He tells his goons that it's time to begin, and his huge army reveals itself. There are a countless number of soldiers, and the big guy has them all prepare spells. He tells them to fire, so spells of fire and ice rain down on the Tower of Magic. A powerful shield protects the place, but the big guy expected no less from the Great Tower of Magic. The defensive magic is incredibly powerful, but this guy is sure that he can break through. He calls forward another wave of his men and declares that the tower's defense cannot block two different types of attacks at once. The second wave uses physical attacks on the tower, and the big guy tells everyone to keep up the pressure. All the attacks put an immense pressure on the barrier, and it eventually shatters. The goons all charge in, and some guards that are inside intercept the intruders. The big guy orders his men to eliminate them all, and the goons easily block the guards' weak little attack. Sword fights break out everywhere, but the big boss man named Kraken notices that the guards are wearing armor. Kraken moves forward through the battle and goes invisible. Guards on another floor go to help the others, but Kraken appears after they leave. Kraken calls them all fools, but realizes that there was something strange about their behavior. He arrives at his destination, and we see that his target is the tier of a journal. Kraken has his men surround the magical gem, and they use every spell in the book to attack its barrier. Their attack fails, so Kraken tells everyone to get out of his way so he can take care of business. He uses a spell called Earth Rage and absolutely destroys the barrier. He crushes the box as well and is shocked by the beauty of the high-tier gem. Just then, everyone is shocked as some girly voice calls them the Outers and tells them to stop what they are doing. The girly voice actually turns out to be Pram, and he tells them to surrender. They all wonder what a kid is even doing there, and Kraken hides the gem. He wants to know how this kid knew that they were Outers, and Pram can instantly tell that this masked guy is really strong. Pram doesn't answer him, so he commands his men to eliminate the kid. They try to use some magic to do the job, but Pram skillfully evades it all, impressing Kraken. Pram breaks down his opponents and determines that there are 2 swordsmen and 4 mages. Their power seems to be equal to Romantica's, and Pram easily destroys their magic. The goons decide to stay back since Pram seems to be strong against magic, but they don't realize that our boy is a good close-range fighter as well, and he can quickly close the gap. Kraken has had enough of watching a little kid destroy his men, so he uses an entangle spell to stop Pram in his tracks. With Pram unable to move, Kraken uses an earth spell to create a fist and punch Pram right in the gut. Kraken credits the little boy on his skill, but points out that he just doesn't have enough experience. Kraken uses a chain spell to try and capture him, but Pram tells him that it's too slow. It turns out to just be a distraction though, as he captures Pram in another spell. Kraken can tell that this kid is a Havrion student, so he wants him to learn from this experience. However, he clarifies that he will have to survive this next attack first. Pram is in a real bad spot as Kraken's men unleash their attack, but Romantica manages to save him just in time. She remains hidden, so everyone gets really confused, and she beats down on these guys. One guy even sacrifices himself to save Kraken from getting hit. Kraken notices that the attacks are not powerful enough to penetrate armor, but somehow they still do serious damage. Kraken easily blocks more of her attacks and continues his analysis. The accuracy, speed, and number of spells make him wonder if there are more than one attackers. This attack, combined with the strange behavior of the guards, makes him wonder if they somehow knew they were coming. Kraken reminds himself to stay focused on the objective and tells all his goons to cover him. The walls around Pram crumble, and Kraken says goodbye to his opponents. Pram destroys some dudes on his way to stop Kraken, but he's just met by another goon. Pram nearly overpowers this one as well, but Kraken was preparing a spell before leaving. Pram gets pushed back, but that was just a momentary setback. Pram then pushes forward once more, but Kraken has endless amounts of magic. He is also some kind of tyrant, as his next attack misses Pram, but sends his own goon falling through the ground. Pram can't believe this guy would do this to his own soldier, but Kraken reveals that there are plenty of replacements. Pram tries to attack this evil guy but fails, and Kraken tells him that while his sword is good, his attacks are useless. Kraken begins to surround himself with rocks, so Pram does his best to try and break through. Kraken says it's hopeless as the rocks just keep coming, and he is disappointed that Pram doesn't have more moves. Not only that, but he has discovered where the other attacks are coming from, and he forces Romantica out from hiding. Kraken never expected that kids would interrupt his plan, and he wonders who is leading them. It's clear that they knew he was coming, and he wants to know how. They refuse to answer, but Kraken warns them that if they don't tell him, then he will make them experience something more terrifying than death. Romantica isn't scared of his threats, so he attacks her. Pram has to save her, so he tells Romantica to stop provoking the guy. Romantica just doesn't like this evil guy at all, and launches some air balls at him, showing impressive control. Kraken compliments her on her accuracy, but explains that she lacks power. Romantica hits him right in the face with a rock and thanks him for the lesson. The two attack each other, but they just cancel each other out. Pram tries to attack through the confusion, but Kraken is done playing with these children. He prepares another attack, which Romantica can tell is really dangerous, so she tells Pram to get away. Kraken uses a more powerful version of Earth Rage, destroying the whole room. Kraken gets away, and we see that our heroes just barely manage to survive. They completely lost and realized that the guy was really strong. For some reason, they don't seem upset at all and just think that Desir needs to train them more. We then see why they aren't upset, as they wonder if they completed their part of the plan well enough. Below the tower, Kraken celebrates his victory, but thinks about how he didn't expect them to be prepared for his raid. He credits Zod for this preparedness, but is just glad that he succeeded in his mission. Of course, he is super shocked when Desir appears to stop him. Kraken realizes that it's the kid from earlier, and Desir thanks him for their little encounter. Desir turns into some kind of comedian as he tells Kraken that he is there to collect payment for the bread he crushed. Kraken can't understand how Desir found him, so Desir shows him. Magic emits from his hand, and Desir explains that he marked Kraken with his mana when they touched hands earlier. Kraken finally has the answers to all his questions, as it's clear now that Desir was the reason everyone knew about his raid. Kraken has a good laugh as he compliments Desir's move, especially since he is so young. Kraken quickly gets serious and tells Desir that he will regret everything. He prepares an attack called Doom Fist that spreads through the entire tunnel. Tons of fists emerge from the tunnel walls, but Kraken is stunned when Desir destroys them all. Desir has proven himself, so he tells Kraken that it's time for him to return what he stole. Kraken tries several times to attack Desir, but he fails every time, and begins to wonder if Desir is inversing his spells. Kraken determines that inversing spells would be impossible, so he tries an even bigger attack. Desir makes light work of this attack as well, and reminds Kraken that all his efforts are useless. Desir approaches this fool, but Kraken threatens to destroy the gem if he comes any closer. He doesn't want Desir to take another step, but Desir is completely unbothered. He tells Kraken to be his guest and angrily states that Kraken can try to do whatever he wants. Kraken is taken aback by his words, but regains his composure and wonders who Desir thinks he is. He tries to counter Desir's next attack, but shockingly finds himself under Desir's gravity control. Kraken is once again in disbelief and explains how no one can use the magic of this circle at such a high speed. Desir takes the gem back, and Kraken is stunned when he sees that Desir is somehow able to draw mana from the unprocessed gem. Our boy Desir is as cold as ever when telling Kraken that he doesn't need to know how he does it, and begins to crush him. Desir pushes him further into the ground, but Kraken manages to touch his mask, and it stops Desir's spell. An immense power surges from Kraken's body, transforming him into something that looks like a magical beast. Kraken reveals that he is a magical beast now, and sends Desir flying with a punch. Desir was able to defend himself in time, but Kraken follows that up with an even more ferocious attack. Kraken destroys the attack that Desir somehow managed to land, and just gets more enraged. Desir is now dodging the attacks left and right, and eventually manages to counter with a powerful fire attack. Kraken is crazy powerful now, however, and uses his earth magic to send Desir flying once more. Kraken explains that a spell at Desir's current level won't be able to hurt him, so he will now let Desir decide how he wants to die. His only two options are by magic or by fist. Kraken instantly charges at Desir and refuses to give him time to inverse anything. Desir does his best to avoid the attacks, but Kraken is relentless. Desir just barely manages to keep himself from being skewered, and Kraken compliments him for his persistence. Kraken declares that it's over for him now though, and begins summoning a weapon. Desir inverses it but can't manage to stop it. Kraken's weapon is complete, so he demands that Desir die already. He attacks with all his power, so Desir uses several defensive spells to try and stop him. Kraken refuses to be held back and pushes even harder, destroying the entire area. Kraken claims victory and has a good laugh as he states that Desir should have never challenged the Outers. Just then, Kraken is shocked as his weapon crumbles to pieces. Desir is surprisingly unharmed, and he explains that Kraken's spell was very rare. This is the reason it took him longer than usual, but he has finally learned how to inverse it as well. Of course, Kraken is shocked, but it's too late, as Desir begins to take him apart. Kraken needs to end the fight quickly, but Desir uses a gem and creates a fireball. This fireball is insanely powerful, and it absolutely destroys Kraken. The defeated Kraken wonders who Desir is, but Desir thinks about how he doesn't even know. We get a glimpse of Desir's future self, and he thinks about what he does know is the role he has in this time. Desir's friends arrive and they all celebrate their victory. At the Magical Tower headquarters, some random lady wonders if Desir is sure about his chosen reward for protecting Returnal. Desir is certain and reveals that he has always wanted to play chess against the master of the Magical Tower. The lady thinks it's a pretty strange request, but reveals that the master is pretty strange himself for accepting the request. Desir arrives at his destination and is greeted by his old friend from the future, the master of the magical tower, Havrion. Desir thinks about how now and also in the future, Zod is undoubtedly the strongest mage in existence. Beyond that though, he is Desir's irreplaceable friend. Desir tells him that he is a bit nervous and the two have a seat so they could play some chess. Zod wishes he could indulge in their game, but explains that he has a meeting in 27 minutes. Zod is then stunned when Desir reveals that he would like to play using the herbal method. This is a strange request, as Zod explains that not many people around there know how to play under those rules. Zod accepts his request and changes the game a bit. Desir remembers the future and explains to Zod that an old friend taught him how to play using these rules. It was pretty difficult, but it was a fond memory of his. The two begin playing and Zod quickly realizes that Desir is very skilled. Zod takes the lead in the match, however, and explains that Desir still has much to learn. Zod determines that he will definitely make it to his meeting in time if things continue this way, but Desir states that he would like for them to make a wager. The loser will have to grant one wish to the winner. Zod thinks it's a bad idea since Desir is merely a student and there's no possible way he could grant anything that Zod would wish for. Desir then spots some unprocessed gems and asks to use one. Desir then extracts the mana from the gem with his bare hand, shocking Zod. Zod desperately wants to know how Desir achieved such a feat, but Desir tells him that the answer will be the wish he grants Zod for winning. Zod agrees and wonders what Desir would like for his wish if he wins. Desir mysteriously says that he will find out once he wins, so the wager is set and the two continue their match. Elsewhere, Azez sits outside a house while a party is going on inside. The Blue Moon instructor wonders why she isn't in there working the crowd and reveals that there are several unpleasant rumors going around. It's because she lost in the ranking tournament, so he thinks it's her responsibility to clear things up. Azez then shocks him when she reveals that she doesn't really care. They lost fair and square, so there's no point in hiding it or lying about it. The instructor gets furious as he reminds her that she is the reason they lost. If she has any issue with covering it up, then he declares that she needs to quit the Blue Moon group. Azez thinks about all the new friends she has made and decides that quitting the Blue Moon group is actually a fantastic idea. Elsewhere, Desir compliments his friends on how well they did against the Outers. Thanks to them, they were able to recover the tier of her journal. Romantica pretends to be pleased as well, but gets really serious. She points out that the reality is, neither Pam or herself had any chance against Kraken. Romantica states that they need to get stronger, but knows that's what Desir was getting at all along. Pram has been wondering something, and just comes out and asks why Desir trains them so hard to become stronger. Desir then shocks them as he reveals that in 12 days, a shadow world will appear and they will be sent to conquer it. It won't be anything like the simulations they do in the academy. If they fail, then the world will get closer to its doom and they will all lose their lives. Desir refuses to let that happen as he won't let anyone die. Romantica has come to realize that things Desir says usually comes true. Even though he is in the lowest circle, he is somehow super strong. He correctly predicted several things already, so Romantica wants answers. Desir prepares to answer her, but she surprisingly stops him. She desperately wants to know his secret, but reminds Desir of what she said when she first joined their party. Romantica told him that she would uncover his secret no matter what, so she doesn't want him to tell her. Desir teases her a bit as he is certain that she wants to know, but they all just have a good laugh. Desir gets serious again to remind them that they need to get stronger, including himself. He asks his friends to stick by his side, so they agree. The anime then goes into a really long montage. Desir continues training Romantica, and Azez eventually goes to meet with him. Pram trains with some seaweed head that we have never seen before, but it might be his long-lost father that finally came back with the milk. Azez seems to ignore her old group and does some training with Desir. Pram eventually overtakes his new trainer, while Desir seems to unlock some hidden power within Romantica. Azez completes her training as well and gets in a pretty awkward situation with Desir. Eventually, the date Desir predicted arrives and alarms sound. An emergency announcement confirms that a shadow world has appeared. All students are ordered to report to the auditorium. We then see Romantica, who really likes wearing the school's combat uniform. Desir tells his friends that they both look great and they arrive at the teleportation gate. Azez arrives to join them, and Romantica finally accepts her as she realizes that they will need her. Desir is certain that this was the exact moment he was sent back in time for, and is determined to change their fate. He makes certain that all his friends are ready for what's to come, and proclaims that they will save the world. Thanks for watching this full Season 1 recap. Sign up to my free newsletter if you want to show some support to the channel, link is in the description.